Hey Ty here. Hope everyone is doing well. So, recent time we've been talking about the wildfires and also the potential for returning snow next week, but we still, of course, have to talk about this week. As far as the winter threat is concerned for this week here, not really a whole lot to talk about. Lake effect snow is going to be a factor for maybe a day or so, but nothing of major significance right as of right now. Things, of course, could change as we get later towards the week. There are some prominent signals here every once in a while where we're getting the potential for up to 2 to 4 inches of snow. There's also going to be some chances of snow over towards the Ohio Valley and parts of the interior Northeast as well throughout the earlier part of the week. For the most part, over the next 3 days, I'm expecting more so along the lines of about 1 to 2 inches there. The big topic, of course, this week, which we already know about, is unfortunately the wildfires, where yet another extreme risk has been issued over towards LA and Santa Barbara over here. Winds are increasing again. There have been reports of up to 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, and unfortunately, that is forecast to continue. The threat does seem like it will drop off in regards to Wednesday and beyond here. We still have a critical fire weather outlook, unfortunately, and there are further days where we'll have to keep an eye out as well. There's a day 3 risk right now, but nothing beyond that at the moment, thankfully. Relative humidities are going to remain low, unfortunately, in the short term. But there is going to be a little change here that is going to help our issues out here towards LA. We're going to end up changing the wind flow towards this region here, which we'll get into in a moment. Another big topic, of course, is going to be the big cold snap that we're expecting next week as well. The confidence that we have over here is very high at this point, over towards the Tennessee valleys, the Ozarks, Midwest, and even the deep south as well. We have almost an 80 to 90% chance of below average temperatures, and there's a high likelihood that these are going to be significantly below average. More details on that in just a second here. So while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and, of course, look at the model data here. So the main thing that we're going to be paying attention to start out is actually going to be out towards the west. So you see this little feature right here, this trough. This is going to be what is our saving grace here towards the west. It takes a little while for it to kick in and move around. But what we're going to be paying close attention to is these wind barbs. You watch really closely, especially as this trough begins to move. This is going to change the flow from offshore winds to onshore winds. And what that's going to effectively do is raise those relative humidities. So this will allow us to catch a little bit of the break. The winds are still going to be strong, and it's going to reduce the air quality, unfortunately. But on either model here, though, it does look like as we get towards the end of the week, we start to catch a little bit of help. Now, what would really help is some rain, but unfortunately, that's not looking like it's in the cards as of right now. Things could change, but as of right now, we're mainly just going to be looking for those winds to be a little bit more favorable for the firefighters here in this case. Now, as we go further along here, this trough is going to be the start of the active trend that we get into for the rest of the month here. And also, it's going to be part of the wintry systems that we'll be watching as we get later into next week here. Now, to end out the week, chances of rain are actually going to go up more than anything, especially towards the southern part of the U.S. here. Maybe towards the Great Lakes over here, we'll have shots at some wintry weather here. Lake effect machine is going to open up again, because with that last cold blast, I'm thinking that the lakes were actually frozen pretty well. So with that being the case there, the lake effect machine kind of slows down from that point. But temperatures at this point, I would say, will be pretty optimal as we go further and further along. So as we continue with the GFS in particular, we're going to see another trough come in around the 19th and the 20th, and this may very well set the stage for yet another wintry system that was very reminiscent of the last one that we had earlier, about a week ago, I would say at this point now. Or it feels like it's been a week ago. It's really been about 3 or 4 days, truthfully. But it seems like it was so long ago already. Well, at least to me it does. You can see this troughing beginning to occur over here with the GFS. Now, one thing I am making note of here, I'm looking at these contour lines, and there's a particular number that I look for on these, and it's the 540 line. 540 line is all the way up there, We're all the way to 570 here. Now the 540 line is important because that's our 32-degree line. We're at that's the freezing line basically. With it being all the way up north, I find myself questioning this run a little bit in regards to snow potential. You'll see in a minute why I'm kind of perplexed as to what I'm looking at on this here. So I'm not sure if this run is really holding up well. This could be a bad run from GFS here. Euro's kind of on a different plane here as well in regards to that. Euro's definitely not been agreeing with GFS on this. It's kind of been the other way around too. So a lot of uncertainty in regards to this next wintry system here is in regards to the deep south. Now the signal is a little bit better if you were to look over towards Texas. If I go back on here, you can actually see what I'm talking about. We do have better troughing here. The pressure lines are still a little bit off here. Of course, we're looking higher up in the atmosphere, and it doesn't fully determine the surface temps to go with it, but it's still a factor because if you're looking for snow, you want it to be below freezing in all levels of the atmosphere. This is kind of indicating that it's not. So, a little bit skeptical in regards to this look here. Now, the Euro's looking a tad bit better, but still not really having a whole lot of confidence in this. But in the Euro's case, I get the feeling that we're going to have a look where the cold air is going to be outran by the moisture, and ultimately snow is not going to be a big thing for the south here. Up towards the northeast is also another point of interest with this upcoming pattern here as well. You can see that as time goes on, though, you start to see a little bit more ridging, and this could be how we close out the month too. So a lot of moving parts to this, a lot of uncertainty. This is pretty much going to be a run-to-run type of deal where we're constantly having to update forecast and beyond. So one thing, again, as I mentioned before, is the confidence that we have in the big cold blast. We're going to see some pretty frigid temperatures regardless of whether we get winter weather or not. Some people say that colder temperatures are much more enjoyable than winter weather, and I'm inclined to agree with you for the most part. But depending on how cold it gets, I don't even think snow is enough to help. And for some of these areas, I would say that snow or not, it's just going to be brutally cold. So, of course, we get the 5 days out. You start to see the first little inklings of that cold blast coming in, both GFS and the Euro at this point. Now, as we go further along here, especially as we get past the 20th, is where things start to become a little bit more notable here. Sorry, guys, I got something in my throat. But in any case, though, you go into the 21st and 22nd here. Look at how far that cold air is pushing. Again, like I said before, the GFS, I'm a little bit skeptical with this run here, mainly due to the fact that, again, those pressure lines in the mid-levels of the atmosphere aren't really matching up with what this temperature is showing me. So still kind of waiting to see if things kind of level off with this map here in comparison to those upper level maps. But in either case, though, the signal's pretty strong. Even with the Euro here, you can look and see that cold air even makes it into Florida here. We're seeing some evening temps where we're actually below 32 over towards the Panhandle. And this even advances all the way down into the eastern part of the state here. This could even reach parts of the peninsula by the time we get into the morning of the 22nd here. The cold air does linger with the GFS as well with this, and look how far south the teens even get at this point here. We even have some single-digit temperatures into parts of Tennessee, Alabama over here, Louisiana, even Texas before all said and done here. Euro's not far behind on this. The Euro actually looked a little bit better in regards to those colder temperatures. Perhaps not quite as extreme, though. So, like I said, a lot of questions that we have here in regards to the final outcome. Of course, we're closing in on 10 days out, so a lot can change here. But it does kind of look like deja vu, if I'm being honest here. So go further beyond here. Eventually, we do start to warm up at the very end of the model run, at least kind of leveling off a little bit, I would say, at this point. This is by the time we get towards the 27th. So the very end of the month is where we start to see a little bit of improvement there, getting back into the 40s over the deep south and the mid-Atlantic, maybe the mid to upper 30s. We start to see some 60s pop back up in Texas finally. to go along with that on both model runs here. Now as we go further along here, it does look like the weather pattern becomes a little bit more unstable depending on how that warming trend occurs, and whether or not we get a nice little contrast between that warm and cold air. There could be a couple opportunities for maybe even some severe weather to end out the month. Again, I'm thinking February could be pretty interesting in regards to severe weather, and again, we'll talk about that probably in the next couple of days here. So that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at just how extreme the temperature anomalies are going to be. Now this is going to be crazy. I'm going to put this actually into a loop here. We're going to do the GFS about this pace here, and we're going to let that roll in motion. You can see there's still plenty of cold air in place. We do get a brief warming trend again before the 20th, and then before you know it, here's that cold air coming in. Most significant cold air really seems like it comes in around the 20th to 21st to the 23rd here. By the time we get towards the end of the model run here, look at the warming trend that we're expecting here. Not a significant one. I mean, we're still dealing with potential for up to 10 degrees above average on that final run that we're getting. But in either case, though, definitely going to be starting to look a little bit more on the up and up as we get towards the end of this run here. Now avert your attention over to the bottom left corner where you can look at the Euro solution here, and it's going to be pretty similar, I would say. Towards the very beginning, obviously we're dealing with cold air, slightly stronger warming trend over here with the Euro before we get into the 20th, and this is where the cold temperatures really start to take over here. Not quite as long lasting with the Euro, but also the warming trend is actually stronger with this. Again, I'm really curious as to what this could mean in the long range here, especially as we get into February. I do think that severe weather potential may indeed go up here towards the very end of the month. Still very questionable at this time. Other dynamics, of course, have to come into play, but definitely going to be keeping an eye on things from this point onward in regards to severe weather. So last thing we're going to do is go ahead and take a look at the precipitation outlooks. Now, as I've said before, these two models are kind of clashing a little bit. They're varying in regards to the final outcome here. GFS at this point shows a crazier run out of the two. So we're going to go with the Euro first, actually. I would say this is the more tame run. So what I'm going to do at this point, we're just going to jump straight to the 18th here. This is where we have that little mix of wintry precipitation. So this is going to be a little burst of action here to start out the weekend. Like I said, for the most part, snow is going to be relatively light. A little bit of ice here and there, but nothing that's unfamiliar for this region here towards the Ohio Valley and parts of the interior Northeast. It's going to be a quick moving system. By the time we get towards Sunday morning, it's already out of here. So after that point comes the cold air to follow. Not really much available in the way of moisture. As we can see, lake effect machine kicks in as well. Now, as we go further along, it's this system right here that pops up on the Euro that's the point of interest here, and point of contention as well between the models. So as we go further along here, depending on where that low pressure would end up setting up, it's going to determine who ends up getting snow. The crazy thing about this is, even though the low pressure doesn't really pop up till later down the line here, and this also could affect the impacts in regards to who gets what, I do notice that Houston even has an opportunity for snow, which is very rare. But as we go further along here, low doesn't really manifest all that well. It kind of stays off into the Gulf or the strongest area of pressure based off the contours. Nothing really pops up here. Then from that point and beyond, I mean, there's little small clipper systems, little weak pieces of energy right now that we'll be watching, but nothing really to show for it. But as we get towards the 29th into the 30th here, we start to see the makings of yet another potential system and a little bit of a warm nose right here. So like I said, I'm still curious as to what could happen with this down the line. All right, now we've looked at the more tame model. Here we go. So this is a very bold run. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I said, I'm not fully in agreement with this, so I'm not sure if this outcome is going to occur. I did also say the same thing about those last two wintry systems as well. So while I have my skepticism that's on there to keep things realistic, I'd rather try to be accurate than please people. But in either case here Here we go, getting into the 18th and 19th. This is where we start to get that little weak signal over here towards the northeast right now. Euro wasn't really showing that too much. This was more of an interior northeast type of look for the Euro. GFS is a little bit more towards the coast. So still eager to see how that ends up panning out. But look at this. This gets very aggressive very quickly. The stark contrast between these two models is very notable. So we get ice over here on this outcome, maybe towards Houston. Dallas gets some big time snow from this run. New Orleans could even end up getting ice. Almost all of central and northern Mississippi looks like they get snow. And a big time ice storm occurs over here. Also over towards Savannah, even maybe even Valdosta, Georgia. And then a big time ice storm follows up also even for Atlanta, Birmingham, Montgomery, and even Charleston. This is, see what I'm saying? This is a crazy look here. And this just came in. That's the weird thing about this. I wish this was on a 12Z here so I could compare that to the Euro, because the 06Z run only goes down to 44 hours. But in either case here, if you look at this, you're looking at this, I bet you're probably looking at this like, what in the world is this? Like, this doesn't happen. And the funny thing is, a couple of days earlier, it was the Euro that was showing this, and then it kind of backed out of it. GFS was completely against this. So this whole reversal of fortune thing, if you will, here, it's kind of perplexing even to me at this point. As we go further along, eventually this system moves out. But if this actually did occur, that would be some significant impacts over towards the Deep South in particular. Still have to watch out for some of these other regions towards the Tennessee Valley, but for the most part, I would expect them to be all snow, but it would be some very heavy snow at that. This system actually weakens by the time we get towards the mid-Atlantic here. Still could expect snow from this if this outcome indeed occurs, but after that point, it looks like we kind of level off a little bit. Lake effect snow and clipper systems are still going to be prominent, and then after that point, we start to warm up once again, as we mentioned before. Kind of interested to see how the very end of the month looks with this in regards to severe weather potential. Right now, I'm going to say I'm kind of leaning a little bit against it still, but this could be a sign of things to come maybe. But in either case though, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Got to run to work. You guys stay safe, stay warm, and I will see you very soon. It's been time, Metalhead Weatherman. Enjoy the rest of your day.